Here's the reality: 5 to 10 hours per week from specialized experts often generates more revenue from 40 hours a week from a full time generalist email manager, while costing the same or even less. If you're running a 7 or 8 figure brand, hiring that full time person at this stage often makes no sense. I'm your host, Matt Lady. I do e commerce marketing at Client Boost, a performance marketing for D2C brands. Today, I'm talking with my good friend, Elliot Kovac, founder of Dispatch, an email and SMS agency that's generated over $50 million for their clients. Before the agency, Elliot spent thousands of hours inside Klaviyo as an e-commerce director at a brand. He has a controversial take that's maybe rustled a few feathers on Twitter and LinkedIn. He's not just being contrarian for the sake of it. He's not rage baiting. After hundreds of brand audits, he's jaded about what he's seen from in-house teams. We're breaking down why agencies with specialists often beat full-time generalists, where that 9-figure threshold changes everything, why that unicorn hire who's an expert at all 5 skills would cost you upwards of $300K, and the opportunity costs most founders completely miss. Let us get into it. Okay, Elliot, you've recently said on the interwebs that you have no idea what a full-time email marketing manager does at a brand for 40 hours a week, and then didn't
That is
explain
true.
it. So I would love for you to go into detail and explain a little bit more, and let's discuss it.
Sounds great, Matt. All right. So basically, let me lay out the foundation of why I have no idea what they do for 40 hours a week. Fundamentally, there's just not enough work for one person to do that is going to make a legitimate business impact in 40 hours of work at one brand in a week. Now, what can make sense is if you said there's an email marketing department that's full-time, where even in that scope, I don't understand like what a strategist and a copywriter and designer like would each be doing on one brand for 40 hours a week. But like maybe that could make more sense. Essentially, I run Dispatch, an agency, and I can tell you that like 90% of the revenue that is generated from brands comes from like very limited places. So essentially, like when you say I have an email marketing manager and they're spending 40 hours a week working on email marketing for my brand, the only thing I can think that they are doing that's actual like seemingly useful work is like creating more campaigns or creating like more flow emails or creating like more segments, let's say. It's just like more of each of the facets that they would be doing. But the problem is like more doesn't actually equal more revenue. Volume, unless like you can make the argument that like, yes, if you send more campaigns, you will generate more revenue. But even then, like there's a cap, there's a limit. You're not sending 3 emails a day, which is probably like what you would need to be sending for that person who's 40 hours a week. So when I look at a brand that has a welcome series set up, they have their abandonment flow set up, post-purchase flows, win back, sunset, like all of their core flows, there's flow optimization work to be done. And at Dispatch, we typically do between like 8 to 12 A/B tests per month on flows once the core flows are actually built and set up. But that does not take that much time to set up in the form of A/B tests. And like the incremental revenue that's going to be generated from anything more than that is just not there. So that's basically it. And there were like some interesting replies to that tweet that I think we can talk about too.
Yeah. So I will help you out here. You're not saying for any brand. I think you're saying for 7-figure brands, low 8-figure brands. For 9-figure brands, probably can build out a department and like have more value there, because incremental at $200 million, if 1% better, is $2 million increase, right? So I think we're trying to narrow it in a little bit between like 1 and 20 at least. That's my perspective. Please add to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd be guessing if I like threw a number out that like would justify this position, it's probably around the 9-figure mark. And actually like that's a really consistent like phrasing, kind of how I like describe the value of like what we do at Dispatch for high 7 and like low to mid 8-figure brands that we work with, which is like at 9 figures, it makes sense to hire for this role full time. But because you're not at that point yet, like that 1%, you just said it, is going to more than cover the salary of a full-time email marketing manager in that position. But bringing on an agency at this point, when you're doing $10 million in revenue, can legitimately make like a 40%, 50% difference in the amount of revenue you're able to generate at this point. So that's where like the idea that you need an email marketing manager, I want to break this down a little more because one of the replies to the tweet or the X post was that I would have this person like creating campaigns months in advance, planning everything. I would have them like doing all the copywriting, all the design. I would have them building and optimizing all our flows, running A/B tests on pop-up forums, etc. And fundamentally, I believe that if you want the best outputs from people's work and you want the best outcomes to be generated, you need to have experts doing what they are best at. And I personally have met a lot of people in the email marketing world. I've interviewed a lot of people. I've worked with a lot of people, and I've never met one person who is genuinely an expert at strategy, data analytics, copywriting, design, and then even like you can look at like the organizational side of their brain to also be able to like project manage all of that. I've never met one person who's amazing at all of those things. So in order to have one person spending 40 hours a week doing several things that they're objectively not going to be an expert at, and this is what really like rubbed me the wrong way when people were like, "Oh, but I know people who are actually an expert at all of those things." It just comes down to the definition of what expertise. Like you are not going to be an expert at something if you do not put in a countless amount of reps and time working on that thing. So fundamentally, if your day is split between strategy and copywriting and design, you're not doing as much design as a designer who's only designing all day, every day. You're just not going to be as good as them. And like someone could make the counterpoint of like, well, they're good enough. And like they're to the untrained eye, it looks like a good email. And sure, like cool, make that point, but they're not an expert. So if you have budget to hire someone as an email marketing manager for 40 hours a week, I would make the claim with utmost confidence that you'd be so much better putting that budget towards a group of experts who are each spending 5 hours a week on your brand because like they don't need to spend more than that because you're not generating 9 figures in revenue to be able to justify more work going into your email program than that.
Yes, I think that is I agree with your thesis. I'm not going to get into this whole debate thing that we've experienced over the last few weeks on our little corner of Twitter of like formal debate structure and stuff. That was fun. There are unicorns out there, and so if someone is genuinely an expert, top 1%, 5%, whatever at each of those things, at this smaller, I hate to say smaller, 7 and low 8-figure revenue bucket, that person's going to cost you a metric crap ton of money. And the resource allocation and capital allocation of where your brand is going and the investment is better spent elsewhere. That's more ads. That is a different 3PL. That is upgrading your brand with CRO. There's so many better product, a different supplier. Like the time and capital allocation of that unicorn of actually attracting and retaining that talent, insane. There's no way that that happens more than once out of 100 times. So like, I
That's
think
the
you're on
other
point.
thing. Yeah, and that's kind of the other point of it, which like it's a moot point because you wouldn't be able to afford that person if they did exist. I still counter there are unicorns in the sense of people who are very good at like each of those domains, but like in that example, again, like they're going to cost too much, so it's not relevant for a 7
Yeah.
or 8-figure brand.
Yeah. 200, like, let's go with very good, not expert, whatever, very good. If you're very good at copy, design, strategy, implementation, technical data, at least 150K US minimum, right?
Eh,
It's hard even to
Like
quantify.
I think like the people that I can think of who fit the bill in terms of like being dangerous at each of those things are freelancers who are making a lot more than that. It's like if they did go in house and give up their freedom to freelance, genuinely can't imagine someone being under like 250, 300 at that level. And even
for
then, it's like you're talking about K versus an agency with experts in each domain. Now, here's like, let's just be extremely realistic. Most agencies suck. And this is where like I'm coming from a place where like I poured my blood, sweat, and tears into building an agency that doesn't suck. That's actually like on paper, Dispatch's #1 core value. Don't suck. So when I talk about like having an expert who is writing the copy, having a designer who's an expert at design, strategist who has brand side experience and is an expert, like what I mean by expertise is probably not the industry like average definition of what you would expect of an agency copywriter. Where like I saw someone on Twitter say like lethal combo of like someone from Argentina plus ChatGPT copywriting, you know?
Yeah.
That's not what I mean when I say like having a copywriter sitting in that seat and writing the copy. So I completely understand that there's like a gap in like definitions to kind of overcome. But if you do, if you can overcome that gap and like you do believe that there is an expert working on each of those things, that team might cost you, maybe it's 10 grand a month, let's say, like at the high end. Then you're talking about 120K a year versus that 300K a year salary for one person. And I think it boils down to a belief. This is something that we were talking about before we started recording, that like founders and maybe marketing managers, CMOs have a belief that like there is inherently more value in someone being full time because for whatever reason, they're going to have a bigger impact on the brand. They're going to understand the brand better. They're going to like whatever it is. Like we have built an agency that completely combats that. And actually, like what I've found over the last year, probably that's just been so crystal clear is usually people inside of a brand are the worst people to be doing the marketing for that brand because everything becomes so obvious when you are inside a brand. Like if you have the best ingredients, if you have like proprietary methods for creating your product, all of that, like all of those USPs become like very obvious to you, and you actually forget how important it is to hammer that home and consistently communicate it to subscribers who do not know the brand as well as you do. So actually, like as an agency, we have so much value in coming in with a fresh perspective and saying like these three things that you never talk about in your campaigns are actually like the things that are most interesting about the brand and most unique and what we as customers, potential customers, would want to know in order to buy. So that's like a completely other side of it, but also like
Super.
more favor.
This episode is brought to you by Client Boost, the marketing agency I work at. We help 7 and 8-figure brands, even all the way up to 9-figure, with Meta, Google Media Buying, ad creative, SEO, landing pages, and CRO. If you need help with any of those, reach out, clientboost.com. You get hit a free marketing plan or reach out to contact form. We'll chat with you, see if we're a good fit, see if we can help you out. Thanks. Back to the episode. Yeah, super important. A quote is, it's hard to read the label from inside the jar. And
Wow.
I'm finding this to be true.
I'm stealing that.
I didn't make it up. It's from someone, Blair Enns or someone.
Mhm.
I'm finding that we're in this challenge right now as our agency at Client Boost is growing and scaling, and we have this new e-com focus now, and we have this still have the old B2B, and like it's hard to like differentiate ourselves and explain ourselves about ourselves, from the prospect's lens versus just like what we think. So it's very
100%.
relevant. Yeah. The money aspect is huge. The capital allocation, the time allocation, like even if you're a subscription brand, like you still, yeah, you need to retain those people, but that's more about the product and acquiring enough people for the LTV to like pay off in time.
And even then, like you're not getting an email marketing manager who's like an expert at everything we already talked about and also has worked with several CPG subscription brands on reducing churn. So like another part of it is just like you can have someone who has all the time in the world to like test new things, or you can have someone who has less time but is like wielding that axe, and instead of just like hammering or like looking for something to work, like they know what's going to work because they have a ton of experience under their belt and like they don't need as much time. So again, like I'm just not a believer that time equals the outcome that you're looking for at all.
No, I don't think so. Again, within the 1 to 20 to 30, 40, 50, like the lower end of revenue, I think I can't argue against that. Yeah. Once you get above, up and beyond, it may make sense. But then this other thing, this like key part of agencies that even agencies forget sometimes, you have 20, 30, 40, 50, hundreds more data points and reps every day in insight into what's working, what's not working, brands, trends, data that a single brand is no longer have access to. So that's like a huge thing that people tend to not consider. And it's like, oh,
Million percent.
I'm just getting the SOP, I'm just getting the playbook, I'm just getting a junior person who's working on 20 accounts at once, and like I'm just getting to get mediocre work. Yeah,
A
that's
million
true.
percent.
Like you said, that's the sucky part that happens. That's out there. That's reality. The top 20% of like good agencies out there, good faith, staying up to date, learning outside of work hours, all this stuff, like they get to see shit, this category, this vertical, and it's vertical and category specific too, like beyond just, hey, I worked at this one apparel brand and then now I know how apparel works.
Mhm.
There's 10 to 15 subcategories of ecom. Like
Yeah.
it's very specific otherwise too.
Oh yeah, 100%. And one other thing I want to draw on is like I have a lot of experience like taking over accounts from internal email marketing managers. And in every single one of those cases, I'm sure there are incredible email marketing managers out there, probably at 9-figure brands. I have not audited, but at 8-figure brands and high 7-figure brands, like in every single one of those situations, there's massive gaps that have massive impacts on revenue. Like when it comes to deliverability, like you might not hire someone to be an email marketing manager who's an expert in deliverability, but like you're going to find out eventually that you can have the best emails in the world. And if they're not landing in someone's inbox, it doesn't matter that much. So when I'm going through an audit and I'm like, why are you not why are you not filtering out like Apple Mail privacy opens from your engaged segments? They're like, and it's the truth is like there's these really big gaps across the spectrum. Like you'll look at flows where it's like an abandoned cart flow where where smart send or skip recently emailed profiles is turned on. And I'm like, but don't you want someone who just received a campaign and went to the website and added something to cart to like, isn't that the exact person you want to receive that abandoned cart flow? And they're like, oh, I didn't know that was the setting that. So like, again, like, but it comes down to the fact that there are these different domains and that person could be an excellent copywriter and they could be really good at email design and their boss and the CEO could say, wow, like our emails look so great. But under the hood on the technical side, like it comes down to reps. It comes down to having time spent and reps put in across these domains. So I personally have not seen a situation where that internal email marketing manager was generating more incremental revenue and covering every base that we know needs to be covered because of all of our like cross like split expertise in these different domains that I obviously have oversight over.
Yeah, absolutely. The other chunk of point being a full-time person, benefits, other costs, office, wellness, insurance, all these things that like add up and you may not have established or may not have great benefits yet. And if you do, they're expensive. And that's a huge extra cost center for having that full-time person. So, or you could have the email agency that has a quarterly or month to month thing that is just as good, or like we're saying, way better at the like
I'm
much
just
less cost.
jaded. I'm jaded. Like maybe this is the clip that you put as the highlight, but like I'm genuinely just jaded at this point after doing countless amount of audits of brands handling things in house with someone who's looking after it, and like seeing the impact when we take over, and then realizing within a month or 2 months or 3 months, like shit, like yeah, like we should have been doing this for the last 12 months. Like we were desperately missing this expertise, especially for brands where like email does play a huge role in profitable revenue for their bottom line. So I'm jaded. I've seen it.
I'm becoming more open-minded about jadedness, negativity, and emotions being like influences on things.
Mhm.
Like I'm not worried about that for you on that side of things. So I like that perspective. What I was going to follow up on that is it's just a pure opportunity cost and you don't know what you don't know. So if it's a first time
100%.
founder and they fall into the wrong echo chamber of social tweets and posts and like guides or communities and they're getting this advice like at this stage, like you said, it's detrimental. Like it's not just, oh, you're not going to grow as fast. Like that sets you back. You onboard, there's ramp up time. You have to learn the brand voice and whatever this stuff. And it just probably does not net out, like we said, 99 out of 100 times, like for brands at this scale and size. So, and
Yeah.
any kind of any thoughts, any wrap up thoughts, any follow up things on this subtopic for now? Full time versus agency at this stage? Any hot
No,
take,
and like
spicy clips you want to clip farm?
I want to aura farm so bad. What should I do? No, like I think that like it comes from an honest place of like feeling like there's an understanding of like what an agency can be, like what they can bring to the table and what they can't bring to the table. And I'm like jaded in the reverse way there, where like I know the impact that we have firsthand when we come in that situation. So like I think it is down to experience and like you said, like down to understanding that there are things that you don't know, then you're making decisions based off them. And like everyone's trying to do what's in their best interest. Like no one's crazy, you know? I just think it comes down to expertise and like understanding the fundamental thing every brand founder, marketing manager, CMO owner should understand about email marketing is that you do have like several completely different elements that are involved that need to be looked after and that need to be done the right way. And email marketing is an area and a domain, a channel where like people just lump it into like creative. Like it's the copywriting and the design of the email that's important. So it's like you go back to deliverability, you go back to how flows are set up. Like there's so much on the technical side of things that's so it's not sexy and it's like not what you think of when you think of email marketing, but that can literally be the difference between like PK in revenue you're generating and 100K. Like it can be that big of a gap when the technicals are not done properly.
The email, we didn't even touch on SMS and pop-ups and like any of
No.
that's other components, by the way. We've just been focused on email. But email is the extension. Okay, when you're selling online, you can't physically talk to people in store and like shake their hand, gauge their facial reactions. Like they have a question, like ask. All of this is asynchronous brand and demand like messaging at scale, like and personalized to some extent. This is it. Like this is you talking as the founder or the person on the brand side. Like this is our product. This is, you have hundreds and thousands of options out there. You're taking the time to look through your cluttered inbox. And this is what we have to say. It's so important. And it's not just cool. I know someone, Sally from school, who can like design a cool email. They learned Adobe like in school. Like that's not it anymore. Once you get to like actual business, you're just starting out, whatever. That's different. You gotta get there. But when you're at this point and you're running a real business and there's tariffs and the economy's in the shitter and like you're getting ripped off from these people overseas and people are like trying to just all these workflows of rip your competitors' ads and emails instantly and recreate it with AI. Like there's all of these factors and forces against you. You need your direct line of communication. Someone opted in to agree to receive the communication about your brand. You need that to be dialed in from the technical copy and design perspective, not just it looks pretty, I like it. I think that's what I want my brand to be perceived as.
100%. Like I cannot agree with that more. And I do think that is just a big oversight and a great case of like not knowing what you don't know until it could be too late.
All right. Well, that's it for this one. Thanks so much, Elliot. Well, one of our resident email, SMS, pop-up retention experts. You'll be on the show again in the future. You didn't know that, but you will be. So we'll excited to chat again next time.
Sweet. I'll be tweeting out way more hot takes for this exact purpose.
We'll pull it up. Perfect. Thanks, dude. So that's it. That's all for this episode. A quick recap is that expertise in email marketing and retention means mastering up to 5 completely different skills: strategy, copywriting, design, data analytics, and technical execution. One person genuinely an expert at all 5 doesn't exist or costs $250K, which no 7 or 8-figure brand can justify or should even like think about. Big thanks again to my boy Elliot for breaking down why specialized teams beat generalists at this stage. If you're wrestling with this exact hiring decision right now, everything Elliot shared is backed by hundreds of brand audits, dozens of clients he's actively working with. Quick plug for Client Boost, or performance marketing agency for D2C and e-commerce brands right at this revenue range. We focus on acquisition for brands. We have Meta and Google media buying, our ad creative, CRO, and landing pages, SEO, and even our own in-house BI and data analytics team. Hit us up at clientboost.com, get a conversation started, see if we're a good fit. Really, 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 really appreciate y'all for listening, for watching. I haven't done this yet, but episode 10, like, subscribe, share it with a friend. Really appreciate it. Means a lot. Seriously. I have a great job. This is awesome. I love to make content. Please give me feedback. Would love to help you even more. Thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you on the next one.